long do you think Ukraine will be able to stand the crisis?
Thank you for that question. The thing about wars is that we often know how they start or when they start, but it's difficult to say when they will end. What I understand from reports on the media, Western media, because we don't know that we're not getting reports from the East. RT has been blocked here in Canada. So, but what we understand is that there's a stalemate where Russian forces have not been able to advance beyond where they were about 2 weeks into the war. And there are a lot of losses on the ground, both Ukrainian and Russian. But Ukraine is having a bit of an advantage, if I should say, because a lot of weapons, even men, are coming in from the West. The West is supporting Ukraine with supplies, with lethal arms. But to be honest, I don't see a position where Ukrainian forces will be able to overrun the Russian forces and then push them back out of the country. So if we say how long, the best solution here is, in my opinion, to have a negotiated ceasefire. Then maybe from there we can have some peace, because the Ukrainian president has indicated in this direction. He mentioned that joining NATO is not something they are looking at the moment. He has backtracked from that. He's also mentioned that he's ready to negotiate on the situation in the Donbas. So he's ready to negotiate with Russia on autonomy for those parts of the country that have declared themselves independent. Fumi, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And it was interesting that once I asked that question, someone dropped a question similar to this, except maybe another piece to it is, what do we think either side will consider as a victory? So what will Russia possibly consider as victory, and what will Ukraine consider as victory? I know Zelensky right now seems to be more focused on, he's carrying a lot of empathetic approach to leadership here. And I think that's also coming from his days as an entertainer. He knows how to drive the audience in a direction that he wants it to go. But I get the same vibe as you, Femi, that I want to think right now, the destruction is so much, the capital investment that will be required to get back on track is going to require a lot of support. If he's also backing out of NATO, at the end of the day, the question becomes, so why are we doing all this fight to start with? So, but I would still like to hear what you think on what you think victory would mean for either party.
Thank you, Fumi. Zelensky is a former satirist, a comedian.
Yeah.
So, he has that effect. He knows how to engage people. He has advanced communication skills. So the question is, what either will consider a victory? I think for Russia, to be honest, they might not be winning the war, but they are closer to their objective. The victory for Russia is that Ukraine does not join NATO at all costs. Ukraine does not become a member of NATO, and that for the Russian-speaking part of the East, that is the Donbas, that they have some autonomy. Those places have actually declared themselves independent. So for Russia, the strategy is to still have some influence over Ukraine. And with the separatists, with the self-determination in the East, in the Donbas area, that will give them inroads into Ukraine. Basically, the NATO policy does not allow any country that has disputed borders. So if there's a border dispute in a country, that country cannot be admitted into NATO. So for Russia, their end game is to continue to destabilize Ukraine and to ensure that they don't join NATO. And I think for Ukraine, from the Ukrainian perspective, if I was Zelensky, the truth about it is that the biggest loser here is Ukraine. Ukrainians are dying, be it military, be it civilian. Yeah. The economy has been suspended. And like you mentioned, a lot of things have been destroyed. Let's say the war ends this afternoon. It might take Ukraine 10 years or 15 years to get back to where they were in January. So I think a victory for Ukraine will be to see a ceasefire in place, an effective ceasefire in place, and to see how they can restart their economy and get people that have left to come back. And then for the areas in the Donbas, I think that would be the major sticking points. Even if there's a ceasefire, I don't know how far Ukraine will be willing to make any concessions. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.